condition of life. So Haridas Thakur spoke about the glories of the holy name, and he explained about the different levels of chanting the holy name, and he mentioned about the first stage being Nam Aparad, offensive chanting. So Lord Chaitanya requested Haridas Thakur to describe about the offenses in the chanting of the holy name. So this morning we spoke something about sadhuninda, where the devotee will blaspheme another sadhu. And this afternoon we want to speak about shastra ninda, disregard for scriptures. So this is also an important offense to be avoided. We want to chant without offense. To chant without offense, we have to be conscious of what are the offenses. So shastra ninda, blaspheming or disrespecting the scriptures. My godbrother, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, some years ago, he pointed out, when he was giving initiation at that time, he pointed out that blaspheming the Vedic scriptures means you don't read them regularly. That is a very serious offense. And we encourage the devotees, be very careful to avoid this offense. You should read the scriptures regularly. However, reading scriptures, you can also hear the scriptures. And that is equivalent to reading, if you hear the scriptures. It's important for us to go to classes and to hear the katha, to develop an interest in the topics of the scriptures. This is why we have the morning and evening program, regularly discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. In the course of the day, when I first became a devotee, we used to have 3 or 4 classes every day. There would be the class in the morning, we'd go out for Sankirtan, we'd come back for lunch, then we'd have another class after lunch, and then again in the evening there would be classes, one before Aarti, one after Aarti. In this way, we were having an opportunity to hear from Srila Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada always reminded the devotees, he said, I didn't write the books just for you to sell. He said, they're for you to also read and to study. He told one devotee, the temple president of the Brooklyn temple in 1970s, Srila Prabhupada wrote to him when he was awarding some devotees initiation. He told the temple president, encourage the devotees there that they should cram my books. So cram, those of you who have studied at college or like that, you will know what the word cram means, right? You have an examination coming and maybe you haven't prepared yourself very well, so you really cram. You may stay up all night, several nights, cramming, trying to prepare yourself so that you can pass the exam. So like that, cramming Prabhupada's books. We should think like that, we should take it very urgently. We definitely want to have a program in our life that we've read all of Prabhupada's books. Every book of Srila Prabhupada's, you've read it carefully. It's very important for us. And unfortunately, we don't find so many devotees have done that. But we do need to take it very seriously. that we want to read Srila Prabhupada's books. His Holiness Srila Jayapataka Swami Maharaj is always encouraging the devotees that they should take the courses which are offered nowadays in ISKCON, particularly the Bhakti Shastri course. And generally it's a standard that if you want second initiation, you should have studied the Bhakti Shastri course, and you should have completed the course. Because we want to have brahmanas who are educated. It's not very good for us to have illiterate brahmanas. Brahmanas, of course, sometimes are illiterate, but we don't want every brahmana in ISKCON to be illiterate. So the courses are very valuable, and it's one of the very unique features of ISKCON that we have these courses for everyone to take part in and to study. Bhakti Shastri, and then go on and study Bhakti Vaibhav, the Srimad Bhagavatam, first 6 cantos, then Bhakti Vedanta, canto 7 to canto 12, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita is Bhakti Sarvabhauma. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, in his time, he had these courses for the members of the Gaudiya Math, and Srila Prabhupada also implemented it in ISKCON. In the very beginning of our movement, Srila Prabhupada told there would be an exam. Those who pass the exam will be awarded the Brahminical status. And one time in Mayapur, in Srila Prabhupada's time, it was in the 1970, maybe it was 75, there was an exam. Everybody who was in Mayapur was invited. You could take the exam. It wasn't very difficult. But anyway, it was a test. The people were asked to quote different slokas and some points from the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita and Ishopanishad and the basic books. And those who passed, they were awarded the title Bhakti Shastri. BS, right? Maybe you're BSc, Bachelor of Science, but if you get BS, then you're Bhakti Shastri. That's the real qualification, and that helps you, that gives you an opportunity to approach the spiritual teacher and request your Brahminical initiation. So, Shastra Ninda, studying the scriptures. Let us see here. We mention here, first of all, what is scripture? It's a source of perfect knowledge of God, non-different from God. Srila Prabhupada always was very concerned that we would keep the books very nicely, store them carefully, and never put them on the floor. He trained us. We never put a book on the floor. We never put, even the Badanga shouldn't be placed on the floor. Prabhupada wanted stands for the Mridanga drums, the kartals, because these are all devotional paraphernalia, and they're non-different from the Lord. We have to learn how to take proper care of these things. So here we point out that the Shastras are not different from God. And then, Shastric knowledge, the Vedas. Originally there was one Veda. That one Veda was divided into 4 by Srila Vyasadeva, and he gave each of the parts to 4 different disciples. You have Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharva, the 4 Vedas. Vedic knowledge. Veda means knowledge, and all knowledge is there in the Vedas. So these 4 Vedas are there, and then we have also the supplements of the Vedas. You have the Upanishads. We know, of course, Sri Ishopanishad. There are also Samhitas, there are Aranyakas and Brahmanas. These are all different sections of Vedic knowledge. Now, there are certain people, they only accept the Vedas. They only accept the Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is generally what we call Shruti. Shruti means the hearing process. And it comes from the Lord himself. Right? Ten he Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muyanti Yat Suraiha. The Vedic knowledge was imparted into the heart of Brahma at the beginning of the creation. And you can see Lord Brahma is holding the Vedas in his hand. So Vedic knowledge is eternal knowledge and is considered to be infallible, perfect knowledge without any defect. Some classes of people like Vedantists or the Jnanis, they will accept only the Vedas. And if you're debating with them, you cannot quote Bhagavad Gita. You cannot quote Srimad Bhagavatam. They will not accept. They will say, no, these things, that is not Shruti. That is not authorized Vedic evidence. So there are classes of, there are some societies like that, and they're quite active and quite prominent. You can go on the internet. They have many discourses, they have lectures, they have centers in USA as well, giving the lectures, and not only in India, but also around the world, where they're presenting the Shruti, the knowledge of the Shruti, and they argue on the basis of the Vedas. So sometimes you may be confronted with this kind of person who only accept Vedic knowledge, and we have to also use what Vedic knowledge we have to present our own philosophy. And this happened one time, in Srila Prabhupada's time, when there was a debate of professors, and they were presenting Vedic knowledge, and Hridayananda Maharaj was invited to come and give a presentation. So Hridayananda Maharaj began, first of all, he was quoting some verses from the Bhagavad Gita. And the Vedantists who were there, and the Jnanis, they just, listen to him, he's quoting Bhagavad Gita. You know, they didn't take it seriously. But then Maharaj went on to quote Vedic evidence. And then they were completely astonished. They were completely defeated. Because in Srila Prabhupada's books, you will find also, Srila Prabhupada points out, he said, there is the Shruti statement, and he will quote a verse from some Upanishad. And so it's important for us to be aware of these things. And it was for this reason that Srila Prabhupada published the Ishopanishad, because he knew there are a class of people who only accept the Vedas. So the Upanishads are part of the Vedas. And Ishopanishad is just one of the Upanishads. Of course, there are other Upanishads, but the Ishopanishad is the one which is most conducive to presenting the Krishna conscious philosophy. And Srila Prabhupada did it in a very expert way. Actually, Srila Prabhupada wrote the Ishopanishad while he was still in India, before he had even gone to the West. But after he came to the West, he told the devotees that I've written these articles, you can collect all of these articles and you can publish them in the book, make a book, Sri Ishopanishad. And that's how we have the Ishopanishad. And the subtitle of the Ishopanishad is the knowledge which brings one closer to Godhead. So Upanishads are like that. It's a stepping stone to the absolute truth. So the 4 Vedas are there, and then the supplements of the Vedas. And then you have also Itihasa. You have Ramayana. We've been hearing a lot from the Ramayana in the last 10 days. And then we have also Mahabharata. Jiva Goswami did say that no one ever got love of God from the Mahabharata. So while Mahabharata is Vedic evidence, and we do quote it, and Prabhupada does quote it also several places in our Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it's not very easy, not very helpful for us to come to the goal of Krishna Prem, right? So these are the itihasas. There's a statement, there's a verse, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatriki Vidim Vinam Aikantiki Harer Bhaktya Utpatayaiva Kaupate. That if we do devotional service, if it is not according to the Shruti, the Smriti, the Puranas, and the Pancharatriki, then it is simply a disturbance to society. Rupa Goswami quotes this verse in his writing. It's a Vedic verse. So devotional service should be performed according to the scriptures. So we're looking at the different scriptures. We said there are the 4 Vedas, there are the itihasas, there are also 18 Puranas. Srila Vyasadeva didn't just write one Purana, but he wrote 18 Puranas, one for each of the modes of nature, or rather 6 for each of the modes of the 3 modes of nature. So three modes, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and there are 6 Puranas for each of the modes. And you can see Bhagavat Purana is there for the Sattva guna. But actually Bhagavat Purana was later modified by Srila Vyasadeva, and the Bhagavatam is it's a ripened fruit of all of the Vedic literature. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, Nigama Kalpataror Galitampalam, Shukamukad Amrita Dravatam Yatam, Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam, Mahur Aho Rashika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. Srila Vyasadeva, in his introduction to the Bhagavatam, he describes how the Vedas is like a tree. Now the valuable part of a tree is the fruit. And the fruit, just like the Vedas are like a tree of Vedic knowledge. And the fruit of the Vedas is there in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is described that it is all juice and it is very relishable. It's made all the more relishable because it is touched by the lips of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. So Bhagavatam is the fruit of all of these Vedic literatures. The Puranas, 18 Puranas dealing with the different modes. People more in the mode of ignorance, they will be more attracted to study the 6 Puranas which are there for the mode of ignorance. But for those who want pure transcendental knowledge, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the cream, it's the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. So we give all importance to the Srimad Bhagavatam, although there are several other Puranas. So then Smriti are also there. We said Shruti is a hearing process. The Smriti is the remembering process. Smriti, Shruti is like a mother, tells you everything about the father. And Smriti is like the sister. Sister will tell you what your mother said. Right? You have a sister, she will say, mother said you shouldn't do that. Mother said you had to go there. Mother said, so Smriti is like that. And Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas, they're all in that category of being Smriti. So we've mentioned some of the names of the different authors and their different teachings are all there. You can see Vyasa's name is there, his father's name is there, Parashara, then Brihaspati, Sajjayana, Samvata, so many names of great souls. Even Gautama is there, you know. So all of these different teachers, they're presenting the Smriti. The Puranas are like the supplement of the Vedas, but in the Kali Yuga, because Vedic knowledge is so difficult to understand, we give more importance to the Puranas than to just studying the 4 Vedas. But as I said, you'll always get people who are just Vedantists, and they simply want to talk on the basis of Vedanta. Then you have the Pancharatras, and you can see the different Samhitas. One of them there we know well, the Brahma Samhita, which Lord Chaitanya had discovered. When Lord Chaitanya was traveling in South India, he went to the Adikeshava temple in Kerala. And there, in great joy, he came across the writing of the Brahma Samhita. So he had it copied, and then he brought it back. And he brought it back to Jagannath Puri, and he announced to all of his devotee associates that he had brought this wonderful book which summarized the whole Krishna conscious philosophy. And Ramananda Rai, Swarup Damodar, everyone copied it. They were all very happy to get the Brahma Samhita. And of course we have also the publication of Brahma Samhita with the commentary by Om Vishnupad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. So it's a very valuable text for us. So Pancharatra, and then we want to show the relationship, how we come to the Bhagavatam. Veda, meaning all knowledge, and then the Upanishads, which are the giving us a summary, some study of the Vedas, the philosophical points of the Vedas. So there are 108 Upanishads. We only have one Upanishad. We only have the Isha Upanishad, but there are many other Upanishads. Srila Prabhupada only commented on the Isha Upanishad. And Srila Vyasadeva also wrote the Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is Vedanta Sutra, sometimes called Vedanta Sutra. And its presentation is actually Nyaya, is actually logic. But he's presenting in a condensed form the message of the Vedas. Veda means knowledge, so Vedanta means the end of knowledge. So Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. Sutra means it's put in a very condensed fashion. So because it's so condensed, it's not easy to understand. And the Mayavadi philosophers, in the line of Shankaracharya, the Mayavadi sannyasis, they spend their time studying Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra and speculating on what is the actual meaning behind the Vedanta. So Lord Chaitanya, he discussed this with the Mayavadi sannyasis at Benares, and he explained to them the conclusion of the Vedanta was that everyone should chant the holy names of Lord Krishna. Lord Chaitanya was so eloquent and so expert in guiding the minds of the Mayavadi sannyasis that he convinced them in the importance of the chanting of the holy name. They could not argue with him, and they all chanted the holy name. And Lord Chaitanya therefore happily accepted them and went on to take prasadam with them, although usually he would not associate with them. So Brahma Sutra is the commentary or the condensed form of the Vedas. And the commentary on the Brahma Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. And each of the 4 lines of the cyclic succession, they have their own commentary on Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra. It was not that very long ago, a few hundred years back, in the times of Baladev Vidyabhusan and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that there was a challenge against the Gaudiya Sampradaya. The Ramanandis had been living in Puri and talking to the king of Jaipur, not Puri, the king of Jaipur. But the Govinda deity is there in Jaipur, and the Ramanandi Vaishnavas, they're not exactly Vaishnavas, they're more impersonal. But anyway, these Ramanandi people were talking to the king of Jaipur, and they were telling him that these Gaudiya Vaishnava people, that they're not authorized, they don't have any real disciplic succession, because they don't even have a commentary on the Brahma Sutras. All the other Sampradayas have their commentary on Brahma Sutras, but these Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they don't have any commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So the message was sent to Vrindavan, and at that time Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was in poor health. So he requested his intimate associate and his student, Baladeva Vidyabhusan, to take up the challenge. So Baladeva Vidyabhusan came to Jaipur, and they told him that we cannot accept you as an authorized Sampradaya. You have no commentary on Brahma Sutra. So the king of Jaipur, he said, what can I do? He said, they're saying like this, you have no commentary. And Baladeva Vidyabhusan argued that, no, we have Srila Vyasadeva, the author of Brahma Sutra. His own commentary is there in the form of the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam. But they said, no, you have to have your own commentary from your own Sampradaya. The other Sampradayas have all produced their own commentary on Vedanta. Where is your commentary? And Srila Baladeva Vidyabhusan, he had to take up the challenge. So he prayed to Govindaji, and you can see Prabhupada offers his Bhagavad Gita to Baladeva Vidyabhusan because he presented so nicely a commentary on the Brahma Sutras, which he called Govinda Bhashya, the words of Govinda. In other words, the deity of Govinda spoke to him this commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So Baladeva Vidyabhusan, he did this wonderful work that he presented the Govinda Bhashya as the Gaudiya Vaishnava commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So that's just some background about Brahma Sutra. But we accept the Srimad Bhagavatam as being the natural commentary on Brahma Sutras. And you can see on the left side, we've also shown that from the Vedas, the Puranas, Puranic literature, are the supplement of the Vedas. And from the Puranas, the cream of the Puranas is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this way, we give all importance to the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the incarnation of the Lord in the Kali Yuga. Srimad Bhagavatam describes how the sages in Naimisharanya had requested to Sutta Goswami that when Lord Krishna was present on the planet, he was the personification of all religion. But now he's departed from the world. Where are the religious principles found? And then Sutta Goswami replied that this Srimad Bhagavatam is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna for his own abode. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of this age of Kali, will get light from this Purana. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the incarnation of Krishna. For this Kali Yuga, we can also be guided by Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why Srila Prabhupada was so anxious and worked so hard to produce his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. All right, so scriptures are very important, and we want to understand the problem, the necessity for having scriptures, because of our own frailties as conditioned souls in the material world. Those of you who have read the introduction to the Sri Ishopanishad, you will know Prabhupada gave a lecture there, Introduction to the Vedas. And in that lecture, Prabhupada talked about the 4 defects which are there in the conditioned souls. And because of these 4 defects, we do not have perfect knowledge. So the 4 defects are listed here. First of all, the limitation of our senses, imperfect senses, in other words. And then we make mistakes. Another problem is cheating, the propensity to cheat. And the third thing is illusion or inattention, mentioned here, overlooking. So these 4 different defects are there in us conditioned souls. Imperfect senses, we don't have good, we make mistakes, our judgment is wrong, we're cheated sometimes, or sometimes we cheat others, and we're often in illusion. So the 4 defects of conditioned souls are there, and makes it difficult for us to have perfect knowledge. That's why we need scriptures. We need to be guided. We say, we cannot perceive matter perfectly. So if we cannot perceive matter perfectly, then we will have no chance when it comes to spiritual existence. What can we understand about spirit? If we are limited in our understanding of matter, when it comes to spirit, we have no chance. But the scriptures give us knowledge without fault. So it's very important for us to hear from the scriptures. We have to have faith that we're hearing the absolute truth from the Lord. So scripture is the means of knowledge. And these 2 terms are used in describing the presentation of Vedic knowledge. You have pramana and you have prameya. So pramana meaning proof or evidence, if you like. Just like if you go to a court of law, if there's some case there, you may have to give proof about something. And then prameya is the object of that knowledge. What are you proving by this evidence? So in Vedic knowledge, there are 9 points which are proved by evidence. Right? First of all, we want you to understand here, you can see the 3 different levels of knowledge. There's Sambandha, Abhidaya, and Prayojana. At one point, Srila Prabhupada went through Bhagavad Gita, and he identified different verses which represent Sambandha, and what represents Abhidaya, and what represents Prayojana. You may like to do it yourself sometime. Go through Bhagavad Gita and identify different slokas, which are Sambandha Gyan, those which are Abhidaya Gyan, and those which are Prayojana. Just like in our Chatur Shloki of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Aham Sarvasya Prabhavam, the first verse, that is Sambandha Gyan. And then the second verse, Madchita Madgita Prana, that is Abhidaya. That is the process of bhakti. And then Prayojana, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Pritipurvakam. That is Prayojana, the prema, the love of Krishna. So Sambandha is explaining the philosophy, the knowledge of bhakti, the relationship with the Lord and his energy. And Abhidaya is describing the process, the activities which we do in bhakti. And Prayojana describe the loving relationship, the loving exchange between the Lord and his devotees. So you have knowledge, then you have action, and then you have the goal, which is to develop love for Krishna. So I was mentioning there are 9 different items of evidence, Shruti Pramana, and here are we'll go through these 9 points, because this is the basis of Sambandha Gyan. First of all, that there's one Supreme Lord, Vishnu. And then secondly, Lord Vishnu possesses energies. Spiritual, there's both spiritual and the material world. So Lord Vishnu has his potencies, his energy. And at the same time, number 3, Vishnu is the source of bliss, or rasa. He enjoys also loving exchange with the devotees. Number 4, the jivas are amshas of the Lord. In other words, we are infinite in number, we are very small in size, but we do have some conscious free will. As I mentioned before, our free will is not very much. Our free will is to choose between Krishna and Maya. That is our free will. Once we choose Krishna, then we're under the shelter of Krishna, and Krishna takes care of us. And once we choose Maya, then you're in the clutches of Maya, and she will deal with us. So that is our free will. We're very minute, so we're easily covered. And then, number 5, some jivas are nityapada, eternally conditioned souls. So, you know, when we say nityapada, it means that we have been in the material world a very long time. It doesn't mean that we have to stay in the material world, but it simply implies that we've been in the material existence for a considerable duration of time. So the living entity can change that situation through the process of bhakti yoga. He can become freed from that conditioning. And then number 6 describes some jivas are nitya mukta. They're eternally liberated souls. The greater number of living entities are liberated souls and live in the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is 3/4 compared to the material realm, which is only 1/4. So there's a far greater number of liberated souls than there are conditioned souls. We are the Nityabadas. We are here in this material world. And this material world is like the prison house. We're the prisoners in the material energy. But we don't have to remain in this condition. Then number 7, Krishna is different and non-different from his energies. This is the inconceivable potency of Lord Krishna, that he has energies and he's absolute. So the energies are also Krishna, just like the Brahman is the energy of Krishna. It's also Krishna, but at the same time, it's different from Krishna. So, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught this philosophy, Achintya Ved Abeda Tattva, that the Lord is simultaneously one and different from everything. This is the teaching of our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then you can see here in the diagram the relationship here. On top, the Lord of the entire creation, material and spiritual. It's the Ishvara, we said Lord Vishnu, and then the living entities, countless in number, but minute. And on one side you have the Chit Shakti, which is the spiritual energy, and on the other side the Achit Shakti, the material energy. So there's two creations. There's the spiritual world, and there is also the material world. This way we understand different creations. So, number 8, we covered the first 7. Number 8 describes that bhakti to Vishnu or Krishna is the supreme process, and hearing, chanting, and remembering the name is the supreme process. Krishna and jnana are indirect method. Karma and jnana are indirect methods for approaching bhakti. So, bhakti to Lord Krishna or Vishnu is, we describe, this is the supreme process. This is how we can liberate or free ourselves from the wheel of samsara. This is how we can go back to Godhead. The nature of the soul is to be engaged in loving activities in relationship to the Supreme. And these activities are based around hearing and chanting, the initial activities which form the root to the creeper of devotion. Karma and jnana are indirect methods for approaching bhakti. In other words, if you will engage in fruitive activities, as the karmis do, or philosophical speculation, as the jnanis do, then you may approach bhakti, but you may not. You may go off to the impersonal Brahman. You may become lost. You may become misdirected. It's the indirect method for approaching bhakti. You know, if I want to put my hand on I can go like this, or I can go like this, you see. So the indirect method means you're taking a lot of trouble. You're going to get in difficulties by going the indirect path. You may simply get lost on the way. You never see you. So we have to be very careful how we approach bhakti. Then number 9, the goal is pure bhakti or prema. Right? Mahaprabhu taught us, prem punarto mahan. The goal of life is to develop love of God. So that we want to be always conscious, like how much are we developing our attraction for Lord Krishna? How much are we becoming more absorbed in Krishna and in His holy name and in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Srila Prabhupada told us, he said, you simply read Srimad Bhagavatam. He said, one day you will see Krishna in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. You just have to read the Srimad Bhagavatam. One day you will see Krishna. You want to see Krishna? Keep reading Srimad Bhagavatam. One day it will happen. So, the 9 different points are there, and it's important for us to understand that these points, they're summarizing, they're teaching the real message of the Vedas. But to study the Vedas, we should do it under a teacher. We don't want to just, buy some book and read it ourselves. You do need to be guided. You have to have somebody who guides us. Devotee Srila Prabhupada. What is better, if I just read the books myself, or if I go to the teacher and hear from the teacher? And Prabhupada told the devotee, definitely better you go to the teacher. And the devotee asked, why, Prabhupada? He said, Prabhupada said, because the teacher will pull you by the ear. Right? You read the book yourself, we don't know how much you will take in, how much you will absorb. Devotees, they have these reading groups. And so I encourage them, reading is okay, but more important than just reading is discussing and explaining. It's not only just reading and repeat, but we have to discuss what we've read. We have to explain it. And Srila Prabhupada always did like that. He would ask the devotees to explain. He would always want the devotee to speak. What do you understand? So we have to approach a spiritual teacher who is in knowledge of the conclusions of the scriptures. It's important for us. It's part of the surrender process to accept somebody who can guide us. It's a humbling process to submit before the spiritual teacher. But that in itself is a purification, to submit ourselves to a senior person to get knowledge from us, that this is actually purifying us. And it makes us also dear to Krishna. Because the devotees who are teaching this knowledge are very dear to Krishna. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Nachatasman manusheshu kaschan me priyakritama. There's no one more dear to me than he who is teaching this message of devotional service. So because the devotees who are teaching this are very dear to Krishna, and if we submit ourselves to them, then we also become dear to Krishna. Krishna is pleased. And when he sees that we have that faith, then he reveals everything to us. There's a famous verse, Yasya deve para bhaktir tata deve tata guru tashaiti prakitahi arta prakashanti mahatmana. To those who have equal faith in both Krishna and the spiritual teacher, then all of the purports of the scriptures are revealed very easily. Equal faith. Sometimes we will ask people, do you have more faith in Guru or do you have more faith in Krishna? And then we get, people, some, oh, I have more faith in Guru. Another, oh, I have faith in Krishna. Oh, you're both wrong. Right? You're both wrong. You're supposed to have equal faith in both Krishna and Guru, because Guru means representative of Krishna. So it's important that we think like that. We understand the spiritual teacher, that he is helping us to understand Krishna. Now there are certain philosophers and different religious traditions which reject our Vedic scriptures. We should be familiar with these things. For example, Buddhists. Now, sometimes people say, well, Lord Buddha, he's an avatar of Lord Krishna. And Jayadeva Goswami included him in the Das Avatar Stotra. The Das Avatar Stotra is from the Gita Govinda. In the very beginning of the Gita Govinda, you have this Das Avatar Stotra, and Lord Buddha is mentioned there. So, are we meant to also celebrate the different festivals of Lord Buddha? Well, generally we don't, because Buddha rejected the Vedas. He rejected the scriptures. It was an emergency incarnation. You have to understand the situation, that Lord Buddha came in an emergency, as a reaction to the situation, because the Brahmanas had become corrupt and degraded. And so he led the people away from the Vedas. He led the people away from the Varnashram system. The people were feeling exploited by the Brahmanas. So Lord Buddha led the people away from the Varnashram. And they thought, yeah, everyone is equal. Everyone is the same. Of course, everyone is the same on the spiritual platform. We're all spirit souls. But materially, we are not equal. Different places, different countries, they often promote equality among all the people. Are all the people equal? Well, no way, Some people are very rich, some people are poor. Some people are very healthy, and some people are sick. Some people are well educated, and some people are illiterate. Where is the equality? The equality is there on the spiritual platform, that we see everyone as a spirit soul. That way there is equality, but not on the material platform. So we don't celebrate the appearance of Lord Buddha because he led people away from the Vedas. And the Vedas are representing God. The Vedas tell people to chant the holy name. And if we deny the Vedas, then we're denying the holy name. That is an offense. Therefore, we don't have any real business with the Buddhist tradition. Then the Jains, similarly, the Jains also another philosophy similar to Buddhism, where they deny the material, where everything is illusion, nothing is real. And they quote, of course, there are two schools of Jainism. There's Digamba and Swatamba. I had the opportunity, because I sometimes did life membership preaching, and so I would visit different business people and often meet people who are Jains. They're quite wealthy people usually. They have businesses, diamond businesses, gem businesses. And they're usually either from the Dikamba or the Swatamba. Dikamba means they go completely naked. They're totally renounced from the world. And even today, there are Digamba saints who move around. They just go everywhere naked. And then you have the Swatamba Jains. They're more ahimsa. They wear a cloth over their mouth. They wear ahimsa silk. They don't wear any ordinary cloth. It must be ahimsa silk, where the silkworm dies naturally, and they can make the cloth from the cocoon, from a silkworm which met a natural death. And they will not eat anything which grows below the ground, and they will sweep the road wherever they go. Sometimes you can see them in India walking from place to place. They walk everywhere, barefooted, and they will sweep because they don't want to step on any living entities. And so, like that, they practice some level of ahimsa, non-violence. But they have no concept of God. There's no God there at all. And so they don't follow the Vedas at all. Then Charvaka Muni, his philosophy was beg, borrow, or steal, but eat ghee. You have to eat ghee. Beg, borrow, or steal, but eat ghee. So, have to enjoy the body. So, and then Muslim and Christian. Prabhupada describes these are two meat-eating religions. They're all meat eaters. Not all, but majority. Some Muslims are vegetarian, some Christians are also vegetarian. But in general, they're not vegetarian, and they don't follow the Vedas. One interesting man I met in Calcutta, he was a Muslim, and he was teaching English in a college in Calcutta, and he published a book about the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita. And he showed the similarities between the two books, how there are so many verses in the Quran which correspond to verses in the Bhagavad Gita. And this man, along with all of his family, they were all strict vegetarian, although they were Muslims. So there are exceptions in everything. However, the different groups of people, they reject the Vedas. And here are some more people who use the Vedas, but use them in the improper manner. They don't give the real message of the Vedas. And we're going to mention these different groups which do this. The first one is Jaimini. And Jaimini, he developed a philosophy called Karma Mimamsa. And you can read about this because Lord Krishna also utilized this Karma Mimamsa philosophy when he was arguing with his father, Nanda Maharaj, before the worship of the Govardhan hill. Lord Krishna spoke about, he spoke the Karma Mimamsa philosophy. He told his father, just do your work. If you do your work, everything will come. In other words, you don't depend on God. You just do your work. Work is God. We often hear that, right? Work is God. People like to think like that. In other words, there's no God. You just do your work and you get everything. But we understand there is a Supreme Being, and He is the Supreme Controller, and He decides everything. So that's a misinterpretation of the Vedic knowledge, karma mimamsa, using the words of the Vedas, but at the same time using it not for devotion to the Supreme Lord, but simply to get some material reward, to get some material result. There's no thought of devotion. There's no thought of surrender, service to the Lord. And then, next we have Gautama and Kanada. They're teaching logic to understand we are not the body. That's good. Yes, we're not the body, but we have to go on and understand what we are. They may simply say, we're not the body. So are you simply going to recite, Aham Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman? Well, what is the function of Brahman? There is certain activities also of the Brahman. Coming to the platform of Brahman, you can engage in proper activities of devotion. But Gautama and Kanada, they don't speak about the path of devotion. They simply speak about the oneness, coming to the platform of liberation, understanding you're not the body. And we know from Chaitanya Lila how Advaita Acharya, at one point, he was having difficulty with Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya was always respecting Advaita Acharya. Advaita Acharya was so much senior in age to him, and Advaita Acharya was the head of the Brahminical community in Navadvip and in Shantipur at that time. So Lord Chaitanya would always come and touch his feet. And Advaita Acharya would feel very concerned, because Advaita could understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Lord himself, that he is not an ordinary person. He is the Lord, and he's come to deliver Krishna Bhakti to everyone. So Advaita became very concerned. He thought, how can I get Mahaprabhu to stop respecting me? So Advaita then took up a book called the Yoga Vashishta. Now Yoga Vashishta is also Vedic knowledge. It's also part of the Vedic text. But it proclaims mukti. It speaks about mukti. The goal of life is liberation. We have to understand that not all Vedic texts glorify bhakti. There are different texts in the Vedas, and like this Yoga Vashishta, they simply glorify mukti. The goal for them is mukti, liberation. As devotees, we know liberation is not very important for us. It doesn't have any real significance for us, because we begin our devotional service on the platform of liberation. So liberation is not a great thing for the devotee. But for other people, oh, that's the goal. The impersonalists, that is their goal. They're endeavoring for that. They want that liberation. So Advaita Acharya was preaching from Yoga Vashishta, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got the news, he was so angry that he came all the way from Mayapur to Shantipur. And when he got to Shantipur, he grabbed Advaita, knocked him to the ground, and began to beat him. And said, "You rascal, you called me to come here, and now you're preaching this nonsense, this liberation." So Advaita was very happy. You know, he was appreciating. Now he is showing me the proper mood. This is very nice. Anyway, the point is, we don't want to just simply be satisfied to understand we're not the body. That is only the first step of self-realization. We have to go on from there. But Kanada and Gautama, they were both good. They were presenting simply, you're not the body. They never took the Vedic knowledge any further. They didn't talk about the real goal of the Vedas, the devotion and the developing of Krishna Prem. And then also, we have the atheist Kapila, who taught Sankhya. This is the atheist Kapila, not the Kapila which we know from the Srimad Bhagavatam, who was the son of Devahuti. But there's an atheist Kapila who taught Sankhya. And his teaching is that life comes from matter. Life all comes about due to chemical combination. That is his theory, that there's no God, and that you can end material miseries simply by understanding the Atma. And the Atma itself is a creation of the material energy. And just like some Buddhists also, they will also present like that the Atma can be destroyed and become nothing. We don't agree. We say the soul is eternal. The Vedas teach us the eternal nature of the soul. But these people, they're misinterpreting the Vedic texts. These are prominent philosophical systems. They're well known in the world, and they're promoting these different atheistic philosophies. They're misrepresenting the Vedic knowledge. Then Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. He is teaching the yoga process to realize Atma. Again, he's only speaking about realizing you're not the body, realizing yourself as a soul. But he never goes on to explain the higher aspects of self-realization. He simply brings it to the platform of the Brahman, that we're all Brahman. But he never mentions that there is a Supreme Brahman. From Bhagavad Gita, we know there is the Brahman, but there is also the Supreme Brahman. And Arjuna, he Param Brahm, Param Dham, Pavitram, Paramam. Arjuna said, you are the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Abode. Arjuna glorifies Lord Krishna in that way. But Patanjali simply taught Astanga Yoga, coming to Samadhi, and the Samadhi is simply Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Right? The real Samadhi is where we're fixed in consciousness on the Supreme, not simply on the soul. So again, a distortion of the original Vedic knowledge. And then we have also the Mayavadi philosophy as promoted by Sripad Shankaracharya. Of course, Shankaracharya, he is Lord Shiva himself, and he came under the order of the Supreme Lord. And Lord Shiva was instructed that he should preach the Mayavada philosophy. Mayavada philosophy is actually covered Buddhism. Mayavada asat shastram prachanam bodham uchate. It is described in the Purana like that Lord Shiva was told by Lord Vishnu that you take the form of a Brahmana and you preach this Mayavada philosophy. Asat Shastra. Asat Shastra means not eternal religion. It's not an eternal religious process. It was an emergency situation. So Shankaracharya did this work. He came, he preached the Mayavada philosophy, and he brought back the Vedas. The Buddhists had taken out the Vedas, they'd rejected them. Shankaracharya brought them back by preaching Mayavada philosophy. But along with the Mayavada philosophy, he taught things like Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya and Sarvam Kauvidam Brahma. He gave so much importance to these kind of statements, that everything is Brahman and the world is illusion. So again, it was a misrepresentation of Vedic philosophy. Fortunately, after Shankaracharya, then the Vaishnava Acharyas came and they brought back the real message of the Vedas. All right? So, what were the reasons for the misinterpretations here? We point out that one problem was the indirect meaning of words to suit our own ideas. If you go to any of these other groups and listen to their presentations, like, if you hear these people who are using the Vedas, they will use the Vedas, but they will interpret. They'll give the words some different meanings. They will take out the meanings and give it some other indirect meaning, just to suit their own philosophy. We call it word jugglery. They take the words and they give it another meaning. Just like Krishna. Krishna means black. Black means something mysterious, something which cannot be known. So Krishna means something which cannot be known. Like that. And so many ways, so many of the different leelas of Lord Krishna, they're all given indirect meanings. They will take the words and they will use them to give out some other message to present the impersonal philosophy. So misinterpreting the Vedic texts, it causes a lot of confusion. We also mentioned isolating the statement from the context and the conclusion of the work. So isolating the statement, you just take some statement out. You don't look at the whole story, the whole presentation. You just take out a few words and they just simply utilize that. They don't consider the actual full context, the full text. And in this way they misinterpret the Vedic conclusions. So we can get the correct meaning of Shastra, by taking the direct meaning of words wherever possible. And that's why you can see in our books, Srila Prabhupada has word-for-word translations. The word-for-word, we're showing how each word, the meanings of each word there, from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's all done in a very systematic manner to show how the presentation of the Krishna conscious philosophy is taking place. So in this way, we understand the meaning of the work in relation to the rest of Scripture. And then we say, by Abhideya, we conclude that devotional worship and chanting the name of the Lord are the highest process. By studying the Scriptures and understanding the proper meaning of these different words, then it comes very clear. And that's why Prabhupada presents the purports to guide us in logically understanding the conclusions of the different verses. And the ultimate conclusion is that we should take up devotional worship and chant the holy names of the Lord. Although these things are being denied in different places, although these things are being denied in the Vedas, in different texts, people are not recognizing what is the real message, but it's actually there. Brahma Samhita also describes Vedeshu Durlabham, Adurlabham Atma Bhakto, that it's difficult to know Krishna through the Vedas, but it's very easy to know Krishna through the devotee and by devotion. So from the Vedas, Krishna is there, but it's not so easily understood unless you're properly guided with the help of the authorities, Vedic texts, and qualified teachers who can take us through these things. So it happens that from time to time people may disrespect the Vedic scriptures. They may misinterpret the meanings. As I said, one thing which we're guilty is we often don't read the scriptures enough. We haven't given enough time to studying Prabhupada's books. And this is an offense. We do need to regularly hear from the scriptures. So, if we have been guilty of committing an offense against the scriptures, then what can we do? So we're encouraged, we should offer respects to the scriptures. And we can do that by offering flower and tulsi leaves to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Certainly, you want to keep the books, keep the scriptures nicely, keep them in a clean place, and keep them protected from any contamination. And we want to be also reading them regularly. We're fortunate that nowadays we have also soft copies of the scriptures. So it makes it so much easier for us to read scriptures and to keep scriptures with us. Probably all of you have Bhagavad Gita and even all the other texts, Prabhupada's books, already there in your mobile phone. And that makes it very easy for us to be reading, to be hearing. But how much do we pay attention? Although it may be there, we don't always take the time to read. So hearing from the Vedic text is very important. And if we don't hear carefully, we may misinterpret. So we want to be careful to try to present everything as we have heard through the parampara. Bhagavad Gita as it is. There are many editions of the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada would sometimes use some other editions of Bhagavad Gita because in the beginning we didn't have our own publications. I remember when I was in India, it was even 1977, and there were hardly any books. I was in the Calcutta temple, and a new man was coming, a very qualified young man. We had great hope that he'd become a devotee, and he did. He went on to become His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. So he was coming to the temple in Calcutta, and he was interested to read a book. Problem was, we didn't have any books. Calcutta Temple, 1970, difficult to get books. We had to bring things from the West when we came. So anyway, he wanted to read a book, and we had one copy of the Bhagavad Gita in the whole temple. So we were using it every day for class. So we had a discussion, should we give him our only copy of the Bhagavad Gita? Because, you know, he's such a nice young man and he's serious and he wants to read a book. Anyway, I said, well, look, we use the Bhagavad Gita every day for our class. We have class every night. And if we don't have the Bhagavad Gita, we won't be able to have class. But I said, here's the nectar of devotion. Why don't we give him the nectar of devotion and let him read that? And he took that, and afterwards he said that that book changed him. He said, if he'd read the Bhagavad Gita, he said the Bhagavad Gita was okay, but the nectar of devotion was just wonderful. He said it was just so enlightening. He said, it was so nice. He said it just changed my heart, and I knew I had to become a devotee. So, you know, he got the nectar of devotion, and he became a devotee. So these things, you know, it happens. Sometimes you don't have many books, but still we want to distribute them. We do try to distribute as many books as we can. Our whole movement is about book distribution, and we do like to give out the books, and we have a lot of books here now. We hope we're going to distribute these sets of Srimad Bhagavatam, which are here. Romapada Swami Maharaj is a very enthusiastic book distributor. Many, many years ago, we were young men in the New York temple. He was the Sankirtan leader, and he was promoting he was arranging all the Sankirtan. Sometimes even we traveled together in vans in the USA doing book distribution. So he's a very enthusiastic person for book distribution, and that's why we have so many books here. And we hope in the course of the next few weeks, before we leave here, we can distribute all of these books. Certainly, giving scriptures to people, it's an opportunity for them to get to know Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, I will live forever by my books. So we do like to give people Prabhupada's books, let them read Srimad Bhagavatam. We hope when we give books to people that they will read them and take care of them also. Taking care of books. Some people, you go to their home, oh, they have a big library, you take a book off the shelf and it's still in the plastic. Was never opened. You know, often you get books like that. People's homes, they have a library, but the books are never read, and they're still in plastic. And so we do like to see that the books are read and used, and we try to encourage people to take care of the books because they are the incarnation of Lord Krishna in the Kali Yuga. Srimad Bhagavatam is the incarnation of the Lord. All right, so are there any questions on this? Any? Yes? Okay. What is your question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned Shruti and Smriti, and Shruti means hearing, and Smriti means remembering. So actually in China, the translation of Chinese scripture, we use some very special words. So we sometimes we saw them called Smriti and Shruti. We call that very special Chinese translation words. So I want to make sure that Chinese translation words it's very accurate or not accurate exactly. Yeah. The first one, Shruti, it's the scripture was narrated by God Himself, so we called it the scripture revealed by the God. The Chinese pronunciation is 神训经. The second one, Smriti. Smriti is the scripture was narrated by sage, so we call it the scripture spoke by the sage. The Chinese pronunciation is 圣传经. So it's right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
It's right.
But in the beginning, you mentioned Shruti means hearing. Smriti means
Shruti
remembering.
refers to the hearing process. The hearing process.
Oh, process. Okay.
But there are different ways in which we can understand the meaning of the word. In other places, Srila Prabhupada does say that Shruti means the words coming from God Himself.
Okay.
And the Smriti is the words of the sages, like Vyasadeva. Right? Vyasadev's writings, Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Gita, and Puranas, they're all Smriti. So because they're written by people, so the Vedantists, they say not perfect knowledge because it's coming from people. But the Vedas are aparusha. They're not coming from an ordinary person, they're coming from God Himself. The original Vedas are aparusha. They're not from any person. They're coming directly from God. I quoted Srimad Bhagavat, Ten he Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. That the Vedic knowledge was imparted into the heart of Lord Brahma at the time of the creation. So the Vedic knowledge is accepted as being infallible.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, you mentioned Ramayana and Mahabharata belong to Itihasa. So I just think about Ramayana and Mahabharata belong to Smriti. So what's the difference between Itihasa and Smriti? How to understand Itihasa?
Well, Smriti is a bigger area, and it includes Itihasas and the Puranas. They're all included there within the category of Smriti, that they come from a person, from a great sage. But they're not Shruti. The Shruti means the 4 Vedas. The 4 Vedas include also the Upanishads, other things, these things, they're all there. But the Smriti are written by people, like Vyasadeva, Gautama, and different Parasara Muni, and the people, they wrote their books. So they're all Smriti. That is the Smriti. So it includes the Itihasas, the Puranas, and Pancharatriki, Pancharatras, Narada Muni, like that, his book, Narada, it's all there in Smriti.
Okay. So if I want to say Ramayana and Mahabharata belong to Smriti, actually it's right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna， 顶拜 Guru Maharaj。我的问题是，刚刚 Guru 有讲，你是说，如果我们天天阅读圣典博伽瓦坛的话，一定会在经典当中那个看见 Krishna。怎么理解这句话？是 每天阅读，如果没有一个真正的懂得这部经典的人来引导，就是自己阅读就会见到 Krishna 吗？还是 Krishna？
Mataji's question, when you say if we read the Bhagavatam regularly, we will be able to see Krishna. If we just read the book ourselves at home, instead of having somebody to guide us, will we be able to see Krishna?
It depends how you read. There is quality in reading. So if you read with great absorption and with that intense desire to understand and to enter into the mood of the pastimes which are being narrated there, then yes, you can one day you will see Krishna. It depends how you fully absorb yourself in the subject matter which you are reading. Are you just reading mechanically, or are you reading devotion? You have to have devotion to see Krishna. Krishna will reveal himself to the devotees. So if you have that devotion and you read carefully the pastimes of Lord Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita, any text like that, you read it with devotion, then certainly Krishna can also actually appear to you. You can feel the presence of Krishna through the book. You will see, you will feel Krishna speaking to you. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, these are Krishna's words. And you will feel Krishna's presence. Not that he has to come to you just so that you can see, but you can feel the presence of that divine source of knowledge, that he's there in that message, in the text. You can see with the eye of knowledge, not just with your eyes. Oh, maybe there's something wrong with my eye vision. Maybe I have to put glasses on or something. No, you don't see Krishna like that. But you have to have the eye of devotion, with the eye of knowledge. Then you can see Krishna. Okay?
Uh, 还有一个问题就是，刚刚 Guru 对有讲说，那个背离伟达的那个佛陀，是不是2500年前的那个佛陀？可以这样理解，佛陀是背离了韦达经，而那个商羯罗是把韦达经又带回到了，又带回来了，可以这样理解吗？
The Buddha you mentioned, which deviated the people from the Veda, is that the same Buddha appeared 2,500 years ago? And should I understand when Shankaracharya came, she brought people back to the Veda? Is it like that?
Shankaracharya brought people back to the Vedas.
Yeah, that's the second question. The first is the Buddha. You mentioned the
Yes.
Buddha.
Yes, it's about 2,500 years ago. We understand. We're going to be talking about Lord Buddha in the course of our travel here, when we go through some places here in Sri Lanka. We will be speaking more about Lord Buddha. So, Romapada Swami, he will make a presentation also about this. I'm only familiar with what Srila Prabhupada says about Lord Buddha. So there are a lot of different things, about Lord Buddha. It becomes complicated, which Buddha, because there are different Buddhas. the problem is everybody becomes a Buddha in Buddhism. Right? That's the goal, to become the Buddha. Everyone becomes a Buddha. So it becomes quite confusing to understand which Buddha actually appeared and when he appeared. But generally, Srimad Bhagavatam describes that Lord Buddha who came, who was an incarnation, who we consider to be an avatar of Lord Vishnu, he came as he was the son of Anjana. And he appeared, was it Lumpini? I'm not sure how it's mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. But anyway, the birthplace and his activity. His activities are described, particularly by Jayadeva Goswami in his Dasa Avatar Stotra. He describes how Lord Buddha stopped the people from killing the animals. Because they were, at that time, the whole country was becoming like a slaughterhouse. And everywhere they were killing animals in the name of Vedic sacrifice. And Lord Buddha came to lead the people away from all of this. In the name of the Vedas, killing so many animals, Lord Buddha came and led the people away from the Vedas and stopped all the animal sacrifice. So that Buddha, that's the one we're talking about. He taught the people not to kill the animals, not to do Vedic sacrifice. So we know his activity. And he's described the son of Anjana, and I'm not sure if it's Bihar or if it's Lumpini, which is up in Nepal. There's a place there up in Nepal, Lumpini, which is the birthplace of a Buddha. But there's also the Buddha Gaya. Lord Buddha became, they say, enlightenment at Gaya. So I'm not so clear about the whole thing, but we're concerned with the Buddha in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Buddha. There are other Buddhas, different ages, different Buddhas. And even in Srimad Bhagavatam, they mention other Buddhas. And then, about Shankaracharya, what is the question about Shankaracharya?
Is that right?
Huh?
Shankaracharya brought people back to the Vedas. Is that right?
Yes, Shankaracharya defeated the Buddhists because the Buddhists were preaching that everything is zero. Even today, if you go to a country like Taiwan, it's a Buddhist country. And they have a channel on television, all Buddhism. Every day, all day, Buddhist masters giving lectures. And all they speak about is the void, nothing. The word in Chinese is Kong, Kong, Kong. They just say Kong. Yeah. Everything is zero. Right? They will never say God. They will only say Kong, Kong. You have to realize everything is zero. So Shankaracharya taught not zero, it's one. A little change. He thought everything is Brahman. And by that, he defeated the Buddhists. And the Buddhists, even today, they're saying, I think the Buddhists at that time, they were not up to the mark. They were not. They should have been able to defeat him. Why they could not defeat Shankar? Anyway, Shankaracharya defeated them. Generally, he's given the credit, at least. He defeated the Buddhists and brought back the Vedas. He brought back Brahmanas. Shankaracharya had Brahmanas who were good, who were not corrupt, who were not materialistic and degraded. The problem came about because of the degradation of the Brahminical class. That the Brahminical class were materialistic and they just wanted to make money. So they encouraged people, Vedic yagya. Oh, you need to do a Vedic yagya, you need to sacrifice 1 goat, or you need to sacrifice 10 goats, or whatever, you know. Anyway, this way the Brahmanas were promoting wholesale yagyas, and the people were into it. They were giving a lot of money. The Brahmanas were becoming rich, and the people were becoming poor, and the animals were being killed. So then Lord Buddha came, and he led the people. He said, follow me, don't follow the Brahmanas. And so he led them away from the Veda. But then Shankaracharya came and he brought back the Vedas. He defeated the Buddhists and he brought back the Vedas with a good class of Brahmanas who were very strict and renounced, who were not materialistic. So he set up a high standard. If you see that the followers of Shankaracharya, how very strict they are. They're very, we told about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, every day, 3 baths a day. Sannyasis have to take 3 baths a day. And very renounced, you know, study Vedanta, all day studying the Vedanta. So, high standard of renunciation. And then this way he brought back the Vedic culture with high standard of Brahmanas and could bring back the Vedas. And then the Vaishnava Acharyas came. You have Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, and then later on Mahaprabhu. And in this way we get the Vaishnava philosophies to how to present the Vedic knowledge. All right? Yes, some question is there at the back?
我的问题是，就是玛雅瓦蒂还有非人格主义者，还有佛教的那些人，他们解脱的时候都是融入到梵光中嘛？那他们融入到梵光中，还有层次的区别嘛？然后在这些融入梵光中的这些非奉爱的、非奉献者的这些人中间，是不是只有非人格主义者，他们是最有希望得到奉献者的仁慈，能够回归神手的
？So for the Mayavadis, the impersonalist and the Buddhist, their final destination is all to merge into the Brahmajyoti. For these people, 对于他们来说更容易得到奉献者的仁慈，是不是？Is it only for the impersonalists who do not have any offenses, they can get the mercy of devotees more easily and go back to Godhead?
Yes, certainly if the devotees are without offenses, then it's easier for them to get the mercy of a devotee. We see the example of how Lord Chaitanya gave mercy to Prakashananda Saraswati. That Prakashananda Saraswati was a Mayavadi, and he was offensive. He never chanted the name of Krishna. And if anybody asked him about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would say, oh, he's a pretender, and he's a sentimentalist, and he has some mystic power, and he's controlling people's minds. So in this way, Prakashananda was, he was an offender. He was offensive against the Lord. But when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the home where Prakashananda was one day, Mahaprabhu sat down at the entrance of the doorway where people washed their feet. And when he sat down there, at that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited a great effulgence. And seeing the effulgence of Mahaprabhu, Prakashananda Saraswati was shocked. And he thought, oh, it looks like he's already liberated into the Brahman because he's become so effulgent. So Prakashananda got up off his seat and he came over to the doorway and he personally brought Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in. So he did that agyata sukriti. He did some sukriti, he did some personal service for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because of the agyata sukriti, then he got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya could awaken him to Krishna consciousness. So you're correct that generally Mayavadis will not get much mercy because they're so offensive. But those who have not committed any offense, who are just simply interested in the Brahman, but they have not made any offense, they may get the mercy of the devotees. Okay, as devotees, we will give mercy to everyone. So even though they're offensive, if they're willing to be a little kind or a little pious, we can try to give them Krishna consciousness. And we do. We distribute prasadam, for example, to everyone. And we will invite them to take part in our chanting. And we have seen from time to time, impersonalists, Mayavadis, even sannyasis, they become devotees. They take up Krishna consciousness. It's not very common, but it does happen sometimes. If they're a little pious, they can take up Krishna consciousness. We certainly have no barrier. We don't mind where they're coming from. The fact that they're renounced from material sense gratification is to their credit, and it gives them a qualification to come into Krishna consciousness. Just the fact that they have detached themselves from gross sense gratification. So we give them, it can bring them into Krishna consciousness. Okay, yes? Is there any other question there? Yes, that behind there? This.
顶白敬爱的姑对，就是在有一堂课中，您提到双杰罗什在离开躯体的时候，他是唱诵狗温达，还是教授人们唱诵那个狗温达？那么这个是否可以表明他从一个这个玛雅瓦蒂转变成一个外舍那瓦呢？因为他本来不是西瓦的化身嘛，西瓦是主奎什纳的伟大的奉献者，我可以这样理解吗？哈利奎什纳。
Maharaj, you mentioned when Shankaracharya, when he was leaving the body, he was chanting Govinda. Does it mean he has converted himself into a Vaishnava from a Mayavadi? We understand he's the incarnation of Lord Shiva, but Lord Shiva is the best Vaishnava, best devotee.
Yes, right. Lord Shiva is a devotee. So, as I said, Shankaracharya, he had a mission. He had to bring back the Vedas. He had to re-establish the Varnashram system. And he did that. He had been ordered to preach that Mayavada philosophy. But he had also said, Narayana Parovyaktat, that Lord Narayan is above the material creation. So he was something of a devotee. He is if he is Lord Shiva, then he is the greatest Vaishnava. And certainly we offer respect to him. And if Lord Shiva chants the holy name, certainly it's very nice. As we said, at the time of death, it is said that he said, Bhaji Govinda, Bhaji Govinda, Bhaji Govinda Mudhamate. That you just chant the name of, worship Govinda, you fools and you rascals. All of your word jugglery and mental speculation will do you no good at the time of death. So Shankaracharya said like that as he was leaving this world. He left the world at the age of 32. He was a very young man, right? So somehow, I don't know all the circumstances about his departure, but this is what we're told, that he did give this instruction before he departed from the world. But the Mayavadis, they interpret, oh, Govinda doesn't mean Krishna, it doesn't mean that cowherd boy. No, 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 no. Govinda has some other meaning. Yeah. And so they're very expert at giving indirect meanings to all of these things. And that's why we have so many different opinions. But certainly Shankaracharya, great devotee. He's a devotee, but he has a mission. Okay? Any other questions? Is there time? Oh, it's time up. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki